Marpessa, from Poems by Phillips. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. Marpessa, being given by Zeus her choice between the god Apollo and Idas immortal, chose Idas. Wounded with beauty in the summer night, young Idas tossed upon his couch and cried, Marpessa, O Marpessa! From the dark, the floating smell of flowers invisible, the mystic yearning of the garden wet, the moonless passing night, into his brain wandered until he rose and outward leaned in the dim summer. 'Twas the moment deep when we are conscious of the secret dawn amid the darkness that we feel is green. To Idas had Marpessa been revealed, roaming with morning thoughts amid the dew, all fresh from sleeping, and upon her cheek the bloom of pure repose, like perfect fruit, even at the moment was her beauty ripe. The god Apollo from the heaven of heavens her mortal sweetness through the air allured, and on this very noon she shall decide, 'twixt Idas and the god, take to herself a brief or an eternal lover. So, when the long day that glideth without cloud, the summer day, was at her blue deep hour, of lilies musical with busy bliss, when very light trembled as with excess, and heat was frail, and every bush and flower was drooping in the glory overcome, they three together met, on the one side, fresh from diffusing lights on all the world, Apollo, on the other without sleep, Idas, and in the midst Marpessa stood. Just as a flower after drenching rain, so from the falling of felicity, her human beauty glowed, and it was new. The bee too near her bosom drowsed and dropped. But as the god sprang to embrace her, they heard thunder, and a little afterward the far paternal voice, let her decide. And as a flame blown backwards by a gust, burned to and fro in fury beautiful, the murmuring god. But at the last he spoke, and smiled as on his favourite western isle. Marpessa, though no trouble nor any pain, so it is willed, can touch me, but I live for ever in a deep deliberate bliss, a spirit sliding through tranquillity. Yet when I saw thee I imagined woe, that thou who art so fair shouldst ever taste of the earth's sorrow. For thy life has been the history of a flower in the air, liable but to breezes and to time, as rich and purposeless as is the rose. Thy simple doom is to be beautiful. Thee God created but to grow, not strive, and not to suffer, merely to be sweet, the favourite of his reigns, and thou indeed lately upon the summer wast disclosed. Child, wilt thou taste of grief? On thee the hours shall feed, and bring thy soul unto the dusk. Even now thy face is hasting to the dark. For slowly shalt thou cool to all things great, and wisely smile at love, and thou shalt see beautiful faith surrendering to time the fierce ingratitude of children loved. Ah, sting of stings! A mourner shalt thou stand at passion's funeral in decent garb. The greenly silent and cool growing night shall be the time when most thou art awake, with dreary eyes of all illusion cured, beside that stranger that thy husband is. But if thou live with me, then shalt thou bide in mere felicity above the world, in peace alive and moving, where to stir is ecstasy, and thrilling is repose. What is the love of men that women seek it? In its beginning pale with cruelty, but having sipped of beauty negligent, and full of languor and distaste, for they, seeking that perfect face beyond the world, approach in vision earthly semblances, and touch, and at the shadows flee away. Then wilt thou die? Part with eternal thoughts, lie without any hope beneath the grass, all thy imaginations in the dust, and all that tint and melody and breath, which in their lovely unison are thou, to be dispersed upon the whirling sands, thy soul blown seaward on nocturnal blast. O brief and breathing creature, wilt thou cease, once having been? Thy doom doth make thee rich, and the low grave doth make thee exquisite. But if thou livest with me, then I will kiss warm immortality into thy lips, and I will carry thee above the world to share my ecstasy of flinging beams and scattering without intermission joy. And thou shalt know that first leap of the sea toward me, the grateful upward look of earth, emerging roseate from her bath of dew, we two in heaven dancing, Babylon shall flash and murmur and cry from under us, and Nineveh catch fire, and at our feet be hurled with her inhabitants, and all adoring Asia kindle and hugely bloom. We two in heaven running, continents shall lighten, ocean into ocean flash, and rapidly laugh till all this world is warm. Or, since thou art a woman, thou shalt have more tender tasks, to steal upon the sea a long-expected bliss to tossing men, or build upon the evening sky some wished and glorious metropolis of cloud. Thou shalt persuade the harvest and bring on the deeper green, or silently attend the fiery funeral of foliage old, connive with time serene and the good hours, or, for I know thy heart a dearer toil, to lure into the air a face long sick, to gild the brow that from its dead looks up, to shine on the unforgiven of this world, with slow sweet surgery restore the brain, and to dispel shadows and shadowy fear. When he had spoken, humble Idas said, After such argument, what can I plead, or what pale promise make? Yet since it is in women to pity rather than to aspire, a little I will speak. I love thee then, not only for thy body packed with sweets of all this world, that cup of brimming June, that jar of violet wine set in the air, that palest rose sweet in the night of life, nor for that stirring bosom all besieged by drowsing lovers, or thy perilous hair, nor for that face that might indeed provoke invasion of old cities, no, nor all thy freshness stealing on me like strange sleep. Not for this only do I love thee, but because infinity upon thee broods, and thou art full of whispers and of shadows. Thou meanest what the sea has striven to say, so long, and yearned up to the cliffs to tell. Thou art what all the winds have uttered not, what the still night suggesteth to the heart. Thy voice is like to music heard ere birth, some spirit lute touched on a spirit sea. Thy face remembered is from other worlds, it has been died for, though I know not when, it has been sung of, though I know not where. It has the strangeness of the luring west, and of sad sea horizons. Beside thee, I am aware of other times and lands, of birth far back, of lives in many stars. O beauty lone and like a candle clear, in this dark country of the world, thou art my woe, my early light, my music dying. As he was speaking, she with lips apart breathed, and with dimmer eyes leaned through the air as one in dream, and now his human hand took in her own, and to Apollo spoke. O gradual rose of the dim universe, whose warmth steals through the grave unto the dead, soul of the early sky, the priest of bloom, who beautifully goeth in the west, attracting as to an eternal home the yearning soul, male of the female earth. O eager bridegroom springing in this world, as in thy bed prepared, fain would I know yon heavenly wafting through the heaven wide, and the large view of subjected seas and famous cities, and the various toil of men, or Asia at my feet spread out in indolent magnificence of bloom, Africa in her matted hair obscured, and India in meditation plunged. Then the delight of flinging the sunbeams, diffusing silent bliss, and yet more sweet, to cherish fruit on the warm wall, to raise out of the tomb to glory the pale wheat, serene ascension by the rain prepared, to work with the benignly falling hours and beautiful slow time. But dearest this, to gild the face that from its dead looks up, to shine on the rejected, and arrive to women that remember in the night, or mend with sweetish surgery the mind. And yet forgive me if I can but speak most human words. Of immortality thou singest, thou wouldst hold me from the ground, and this just opening beauty from the grave. As yet I have known no sorrow, all my days, like perfect lilies under water stir, and God has sheltered me from his own wind. The darling of his breezes have I been. Yet as to one in land that dreameth lone, seafaring men with their sea-weary eyes roundly in fire tell of some foreign land. So aged men, much tossed about in life, have told me of that country, sorrow far, how many goodly ships at anchor lie within her ports. Even to me, indeed, hath a sea rumour through the night been borne. And I myself remember and have heard of men that did believe, women that loved, that were unhappy long and now are dead, with wounds that no eternity can close. Life had so marked them, or of others who panted towards their end and fell on death, even as sobbing runners breast the rope. And most I remember of all human things, my mother. Often as a child I pressed my face against her cheek, and felt her tears. Even as she smiled on me, her eyes would fill, until my own grew ignorantly wet, and I in silence wondered at sorrow. When I remember this, how shall I know that I myself may not, by sorrow taught, accept the perfect stillness of the ground, where, though I lie still and stir not at all, yet shall I irresistibly be kind, helplessly sweet, a wandering garden bliss. My ashes shall console and make for peace. This mind that injured be an aimless balm. Or if there be some other world with no bloom, neither rippling sound nor early smell, nor leaves nor pleasant exchange of human speech, only a dreadful pacing to and fro of spirits meditating on the sun, a land of barred boughs and grieving wind. Yet would I not forego the doom, the place, whither my poets and my heroes went before me, warriors that with deeds forlorn saddened my youth, yet made it great to live, lonely antagonists of destiny, that went down scornful before many spears, who soon as we are born are straight our friends, and live in simple music, country songs, and mournful ballads by the winter fire. Since they have died, their death is ever mine. I would not lose it. Then thou speakest of joy, of immortality without one sigh, existence without tears for evermore. Thou wouldst preserve me from the anguish, lest this holy face into the dark return. Yet I being human, human sorrow miss. The half of music, I have heard men say, is to have grieved. When comes the lonely wail over the mind, old men have told it me, subdued after long life by simple sounds. The mourner is the favourite of the moon, and the departing sun his glory owes to the eternal thoughts of creatures brief, who think the thing that they shall never see. Since we must die, how bright the starry track! How wonderful in a bereaved ear the northern wind! How strange the summer night, the exhaling earth to those who vainly love! Out of our sadness have we made this world so beautiful. The sea sighs in our brain, and in our hearts that yearning of the moon. To all this sorrow was I born, and since out of a human womb I came, I am not eager to forego it. I would scorn to elude the heaviness and take the joy, for pain came with the sap, pangs with the bloom. This is the sting, the wonder. Yet should I linger beside thee in felicity, sliding with open eyes through liquid bliss, forever, still I must grow old. Ah, I should ail beside thee, Apollo, and should note, with eyes that would not be, but yet are dim, ever so slight a change from day to day in thee, my husband. Watch thee nudge thyself to little offices that once were sweet, slow where thou once were swift, remembering to kiss those lips which once thou couldst not leave. I should expect thee by the western bay, faded, not sure of thee, with desperate smiles, and pitiful devices of my dress, or fashion of my hair, thou wouldst grow kind, most bitter to a woman that was loved. I must ensnare thee in my arms, and touch thy pity to but hold thee to my heart. But if I live with Idas, then we two on the low earth shall prosper hand in hand, in odours of the open field, and live in peaceful noises of the farm, and watch the pastoral fields burned by the setting sun. And he shall give me passionate children, not some radiant god that will despise me quite, but clambering limbs and little hearts that err. And I shall sleep beside him in the night, and fearful from some dream shall touch his hand secure, or at some festival we two will wander through the lighted city streets, and in the crowd I'll take his arm and feel him closer for the press. So shall we live. And though the first sweet sting of love be past, the sweet that almost venom is, though youth, with tender and extravagant delight, the first and secret kiss by twilight hedge, the insane farewell repeated o'er and o'er, pass off, there shall succeed a faithful peace. Beautiful friendship tried by sun and wind, durable from the daily dust of life. And though with sadder, still with kinder eyes, we shall behold all frailties, we shall haste to pardon, and with mellowing minds to bless. Then, though we must grow old, we shall grow old together, and he shall not greatly miss my bloom faded, and the waning light of eyes, too deeply gazed in, ever seem to dim. Nor shall we murmur at, nor much regret, the years that gently bend us to the ground, and gradually incline our face, that we, leisurely stooping, and with each slow step, may curiously inspect our lasting home. But we shall sit with luminous holy smiles, endeared by many griefs, by many a jest, and customs sweet of living side by side, and full of memories, not unkindly glance upon each other. Last we shall descend into the natural ground, not without tears. One must go first, ah God, one must go first. After so long, one blow for both were good, still like old friends, glad to have met, and leave behind a wholesome memory on the earth. And thou, beautiful God, in that far time, when in thy setting sweet thou gazest down on this grey head, wilt thou remember then that once I pleased thee, that I once was young? When she had spoken, Idas with one cry held her, and there was silence, while the god in anger disappeared. Then slowly they, he looking downward, she gazing up, into the evening green wandered away. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.